Well, sort of an off-the-cuff video tonight, just so people won't think that I'm being apathetic about our situation here at home or globally. So let's start with several issues here. One are the increasing drone attacks on Pakistan. Now, these attacks have been going on for quite some time, and supposedly this is going to eliminate Al-Qaeda in Pakistan, even though many credible reports have already stated that there are perhaps maybe 100 members of the true Al-Qaeda faction actually operating in that country. But you see, foreign policy, U.S. foreign policy, essentially has not changed under Obama. What is at stake here is nothing less than control of energy resources in that region. And it is precisely following along the neocon lines with a softer touch, I might say, not quite as obvious in the rhetoric as the Bush-Cheney regime prior to this. Now, you may not think that dropping, dropping a few missiles on villages in Pakistan and in the border region of Afghanistan and Pakistan doesn't matter that much, but actually what's happening is that the war in that region is slowly, ever so slowly, expanding into Pakistan itself, as we have now seen through this official apology by the U.S. government towards the Pakistani government. At the very same time, basically, things have been dropped in the press, such as, I believe it was the Washington Post and both the New York Times, is through unnamed sources, of course, unnamed government sources, is that the United States leadership is preparing for a change in leadership in Pakistan. And some hints were dropped quite unsurprisingly, that maybe a more U.S.-friendly regime in Pakistan might be preferable. So they didn't come right out and say this, but what they did state is that they're getting ready just in case that were to happen. If that isn't a hint that some sort of a coup is being planned in that country, with possibly U.S. support, then I really don't know what is. It is essentially a public warning to the government, present government in Pakistan, that if you don't, follow our prescription in terms of foreign policy, then your days are pretty much numbered. So the danger, in all of this is that we're talking simultaneously about Iran, escalating that thing at every turn, and now venturing into the internal politics of Pakistan, which happens to be not Iran, it actually is a nuclear power. So they do have nuclear weapons, unlike Iran. And once things like coups are set in motion, you basically don't know what's going to happen in the future, I would say. It's not as if the U.S. foreign policy elite is exactly a genius at figuring out what's going to happen in the future, because normally they're essentially clueless. Then, of course, they backtrack and say, well, this was not really our intention, and so on and so on. And so the whole thing simply continues. So So pay close attention to what is actually going to happen in Pakistan. You know, are we now going to expand this war from Afghanistan into Pakistan itself? I'm not sure, but that's basically what I'm seeing here, is an escalation, a very slow and determined escalation. And this with a U.S. government which is basically broke. We're in a situation where we cannot even take care of our own citizens here at home. Our jobs are being outsourced, and the corporations are essentially in control of all branches of government, with the slight exception perhaps some dissenters, you know. But that's basically where we're headed, is control of multinationals in order to maximize their profits, secure their resources in order to maximize those profits. And so naturally, war, as always, and as many historical figures have warned us about, becomes a profitable venture. Only, you know, it doesn't tend to be a profitable venture for the people in either nation. The people themselves usually get screwed when war erupts. We're drawing down our forces in Iraq, you know, which had nothing to do with 9/11. And the multinationals are moving in, reaping the profits, basically raping the country and their citizens. And, you know, it's all a done deal. Nobody in the West gives a shit about that anymore. While the entire nation of Iraq has basically been ruined, or whatever progress they were making over there during the last 30 or 40 years. Here at home, it's the same thing. We're moving back in terms of just repeating the same stuff that's been going on for centuries. And nobody seems to learn the lesson, because now, of course, well, if you consider the Texas Board of Education, history is actually being rewritten as we speak. So that things that have actually happened no longer happened. They didn't happen, or they were brought about by some completely unknown force, because the historians during that period, you know, were just not knowledgeable enough, or they were too partisan or whatever. And so, essentially, the authoritarian forces in this country want to impose their will and say, well, this is the way it happened, and we're just going to erase stuff out of this historical record, and it shouldn't be taught in schools anymore. So there is no debate regarding these issues. Basically, it's taken for granted that this is just going to happen. Several domestic issues, very disturbing, by the way, are the arrests of peace activists via the FBI and other various intelligence agencies, under the pretext that these people were possibly collaborating with terrorists abroad. Okay, this is long-standing U.S. policy, by the way. You know, you can. I mean, it dates back to COINTELPRO and all this stuff. You basically infiltrate peace movements, or anybody that actually wants to bring some serious dialogue about, and you just simply undermine it, and you discredit that entire movement by bringing up personal scandals or actually fabricating those scandals and so on. So, you know, it's nothing new. Now these peace activists are going to have to appear, you know, before some grand jury, and I should probably look that term up and see exactly how grand juries work. But it is my understanding that you can't even bring your own attorney to a grand jury. So it is completely up to you and your verbal skills as to whether you're going to be able to convince those jurors whether you should be indicted or not. Moving on. Now we have this dual system of military tribunals versus civilian courts. And this recent case now in a civilian court where testimony was essentially rejected by that court because it was obviously obtained under torture. I applaud that decision because nothing obtained under torture should ever be allowed in any civilian court, nor a military court for that matter. But you see, the Bush decision, Bush and Cheney's decision to basically have a completely separate justice system for international matters such as terrorism has now opened up Pandora's box, essentially. And so these legal fights are going to be going on for years and years without any resolution, let alone restitution to those who were tortured and who were innocent while they were detained. Okay, I think this is going to be a two-part video. I don't have a timer here, so on to part two if you want to listen to it.